I've got to confess to you people that I've been negligent about reading a book that was given to me about 5 years ago. The thing that struck me so forcefully about this guy just coming through this book, they talk about Celoron was a village on Chautauqua Lake about 3 miles west of Jamestown in southwestern New York, whose sole claim to attention was a big amusement park. I remember that very well.
I started it just because I enjoyed baseball, and it was a facet of baseball that had never been covered. That's how I got into it. But the more I got into it, the more I began to believe that Negro baseball was an important historical artifact, not just of black history, but of American history. It reflected the times, the segregated times that during which it lived. The 20s, 30s, 40s was a segregated era, and while I don't know that Jamestown was terribly much affected, Warren certainly was not. We rarely saw black people unless a black baseball team came in. So the more I got into it, the deeper I got into it, the more I thought it was significant beyond sports, that it was an important part of black identity in this country. Next to the black church, I think black baseball was probably the most solid institution there was in black communities. I saw I saw a lot of the barnstorming black teams. The Homestead Grays came into Warren at least every other year. The Philadelphia Stars, the Baltimore Eli Giants came in quite regularly. They'd play either the local semi-pros or they'd have an exhibition game between 2 black teams in Warren, which had no black people.
The last paragraph of the preface of your book, quote, "One summer day in 1939, a kid squatted on the bank behind home plate at Russell Field in Warren, Pennsylvania, fielding foul balls, which could be redeemed for a nickel each, no small consideration those days. It saw Jock Gibson hit the longest home run ever struck in Warren County. It was one of the most impressive feats performed by touring black players that excited the wonder and admiration of that foul ball shagger. This book is the belated fruit of his wonder." Signed, Robert Peterson. Tell us about that.
Remember that Warren had in those days, Tom wouldn't even know it, but the field was where Sylvania is now, down over a bank. And there was a football field there for the high school, and then the home plate was near the bottom of the hill. And they would put up a canvas fence around the outfield to make a fence. And all I can recall is that Gibson hit the longest one I ever saw. And I said, without any attempt at checking anything, I said it was the longest one ever hit in Warren County.
Who's gonna?
I don't know. So far, nobody has attacked me on it. The fact that Jamestown appeared to be very accepting was clear to me from the standpoint that they never mentioned that, his name? Kelly was black. He was in the box scores. I'd never even seen, you had a picture of the team later on. I never saw that when I was researching, but he was never mentioned as a black man in the Jamestown paper that I ever saw. He was mentioned as black in Sporting Life, which is how I knew that he was here and that he played for the Jamestown team.
That is, for our purposes, and a little-known fact that only you really brought to light. We've had some fun trying to dig up all the old box scores. And
fellows may not know this, but Greg wrote a piece for one of the the Society for American Baseball Research publications about the Celoron Acme Giants. It's probably the most complete. In 1896, the Supreme Court gave a decision called Plessy versus Ferguson, which gave states the right to segregate black people in accommodations in hotels and railroads. The case was actually about a railroad guy putting a guy out of a white car in a railroad, but it was applied then to schools and hotels and parks and swimming pools, everything. That was continuing throughout the early part of the century, and it was blatant is the wrong word. It was absolutely intolerable, the lengths to which it went.
Put me into perspective. When was it that they start the organized black leagues?
1920 was the first successful one. There had been some experiments before that, but that was the first successful one. It was the Negro National League. It was started in Chicago with about 8 in the Midwestern teams.
And then prior to that time, it was just basically barnstorming teams?
Oh, yes, yeah. There was a league in 1910, but it didn't thrive. There was a league in the South even earlier than that, but it didn't thrive either. They were mainly barnstormers. They played college teams and semi-pros and pros. In those days, it wasn't a disgrace to play a black team. So that some of the major league teams played them in the 1800s and in the early 1900s. I went first to Roy Campanella because I knew he had a liquor store in Harlem. He wasn't very helpful, but he did tell me that Buck Leonard was down in Rocky Mount, and he told me that Judy Johnson was a scout for the Phillies. So I had a starting point there. So I went to them and interviewed them, and Leonard told me where Cool Papa Bill was, and Johnson had an address for Bill Yancey, and that was the way I operated. I did find a club in Chicago called the Old Ball Players Club of Chicago that put me on to about 6 or 7 old players and a couple of widows in Chicago. So I was able to make a trip out there. I went to Kansas City expressly to visit Paige. I had arranged in advance for it. I go up and I knock on the door. His daughter says, "Oh, he's not here. He won't be here for a couple of days." Paige was notoriously indifferent to schedules, not very considerate. So I spent, I don't know, a couple $100 going to Kansas City for nothing. It was the most disappointing part of my business. I did meet him later on when he was inducted in the Hall of Fame.
Sounds that these guys were bigger than life.
Oh, Paige, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't know, Gibson didn't have the color, I put that in quotes. He wasn't colorful in the sense that Paige was, and so I don't think he was ever appreciated nearly as much as Paige. Almost universally, of course, Gibson died by the time Robinson got to the majors, but they were supportive, but they really didn't think much of Robinson as a ball player, believe it or not. They said he was not the best player in the Negro Leagues by far. In fact, most of them thought Monty Irvin was better, as well as some others. But they all were very supportive of him, and they all, of course, laud him now highly for the abuse he took and how he stood up to it and what he went through to achieve what he did. John Newman, 1 or 2 years. Okay, so I spanned the period from probably 41 through about 48 when basically I left the area and I didn't come back. But those were players that I remember in those years. And Jamestown, as I remember, had pretty good teams in those years. The most egregious error in the book is the spelling of Celoron. I'm sure you've noticed that.
Noticed it.
I don't know how.
But you're not alone.
Could the Evening Journal have spelled it wrong back in the 80s?
Actually, well.
I don't remember. I'm not usually that careless. Speaking of that, you'll be interested in this, I think. If you ever looked at that book really critically, you will think, gee, that ends rather suddenly. As soon as I've got Jackie Robinson playing in the majors, I use about 2 pages to kiss it off. The rest of the years, and the reason was I needed the last $750 of the advance, which I couldn't get until I finished the book to pay my bills. So that's why it ends rather suddenly. Oh, and it's also, I want you to know, I'm with the Harvard Classics. There is a leather-bound edition.
Congratulations!
Easton Press, which is a little outfit in Connecticut that publishes leather-bound books, decided to do a baseball series. So they did Summer of '49 and Glory of Their Times and a Yogi Berra biography and I don't know what all. About 20 of them, including me. So I'm in leather covers.
Bob Peterson's book and the launching of an era of understanding of that baseball time period, which included the Josh Gibsons, the Satchel Paiges.
All of us, let me say thank you very much for taking
My pleasure.
precious time out of your schedule.
I don't have. Thank you. You guys have to go back to work. I don't.
It was very abrupt because my mother was visiting, actually. One of the PAs came up to me, production assistant, came up to me about 10 minutes later, and he was like, "Hey, Brian wants to see you. We're just waiting to set up for the next scene." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I go up to Brian, the writer-director, and I said, "Hey." And he was like, "Hey, is your mom still here?" And I was like, "No, she just went back to the hotel to take a nap." And he was like, "Oh, Harrison just got here, and I thought maybe she'd want to meet him." And Harrison was right there, and I didn't notice. I was like, "Oh, hey, man." But Harrison is he's a legend. I learned a lot about Stanky, and a lot of it was really funny. He was just this kind of guy. He reminds me of like a current. Like I think Pedroia is kind of like this, and I'm a huge fan of Cincinnati Reds, and he reminds me a little bit of Pete Rose, which is just like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win, and I don't, care how stylish it is or my stats or, it was just like, I learned some things about him that they had to create new rules based on him, because he would study the rule books like meticulously, and then he'd go out and do something, and the umps would say, "You can't do that," and he would go, "Show me." He would get the rule book that he had in the dugout, and he would say, "Show me why I can't do that." And so they had to create new rules. He was just hard-nosed and tough, and he led the league in hit by pitch all the time, and he was an on-base machine. And I talked to his kids, and they said, yeah, he was the kind of guy that would get kicked out of a game, would get kicked out of both sets of a doubleheader for starting fights, but he never said one swear word in front of his kids, and he opened the car door for his wife every day until the day he died. So I think he was a very interesting man. They said that one of the rules they had to institute was he used to take, if there was like a fly ball, sacrifice fly, and he was on third, he would take a few steps behind third base up the line, and then get like basically a running start, so that he tagged the bag right as the guy caught it, but he was already running, and then get home. And they had to create a rule that says you can't do that. He also used to, behind the pitcher, when he was playing second, he would like shade the bag, and then when the pitcher would go in his windup, and back there they did the big windup and everything, he would do a windup, so that the hitter was seeing two windups and screw with his vision. Yeah. And just stuff like that he just, he was a creative ball player.
It was called the Stanky Maneuver.
Stanky Maneuver, yeah.
The infamous Stanky. You did your research. And it was Leo DeRocher who always said he can't hit, can't run, can't field. He's no nice guy. All the little son of a bitch can do is win.
Nice Guys Finish Last. That's the Nice Guys Finish Last was about Eddie Stanky. Well, it was about Mel Ott, because he said, look at Mel Ott. Mel Ott's a great player, but he doesn't win. Stanky can't hit, can't field, can't run. All the son of a bitch does is win. Yeah. Nice Guys Finish Last.
That's right.
They took that quote out of context in the movie a little bit.
Hey, Stank.
What's going on?
Well, we got a petition going on, Stank.
Keep Robinson in Montreal, where he belongs.
Can't sign now, boys. I'm indisposed.
How about I just catch up with you later? Petition was going on, and Stanky refused to sign the petition because he sort of had this moral code and fiber about him, which he wasn't thrilled about Robinson being on the team, to be certain. But he thought a petition is just such a BS, cowardly way of going about it. And he said, if I don't like the guy, I'm going to go just tell the guy I don't like him.
Hey, nigger! Black nigger! Hey, why don't you go back to the cotton fields where you come from? Huh? I thought you swang your way out of a jungle.
Chapman, the Phillies manager seems to be chirping something after Robinson. Chapman, a hothead during his playing days with the Yankees, has carried that reputation right into his managing.
You all right? You don't look all right. Nigga, nigga, nigga. Oh, nigga, 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 nigga. in the National League.
Well, bottom of the fourth. Spider Jorgensen taking a small lead off ice. Jorgensen, a rookie, spent last season in Montreal. Here's the pitch. And Stanky lines a single out to right field.
You like white women? Huh? Hey, which one of these Dodger wives are you climbing on tonight? Time! Oh, wait, time out. Hold on. He's got to take a nap. Hey, which one is it? I think I know. Dixie. Sorry, Dixie. I hate to be the one to tell you. Boy. Porch monkey. Hey, nigga, I know you can hear me. You know what you're here for, don't you? Huh? You're here to get the nigger dollars for Ricky at the gate. You don't belong here, nigga.
Sit down. You sit down or I sit you down.
What's the problem, Stank?
You're the problem, you goddamn disgrace. What the hell kind of man are you? You know he can't fight back. Why don't you try picking on someone who can fight back?
I'm not gonna fight you. Get thrown out of the game.
Stanky now having a chinwag with his ex-teammate Chapman. Both men masters of distraction. Stanky, of course, from second and Chapman from the dugout. We'll have to wait and see what the umpire does, since he's well within his rights to kick Stanky right out of the game.
Hey, 12! That's enough! Back to the dugout! You shut your mouth, or I shut it for you. This ain't happening.
Whew, that scene. That scene was shot over the span of about 4 days. Alan Tudyk, who was the guy who plays Ben Chapman, the director, Brian Helgeland, he also wrote it. He encourages a lot of improv from his actors, which is freeing and invigorating. I think in somebody in Alan's position was challenging because he had to then improv just the most racist, horrible, despicable things a person can say and think. So by the end of the fourth day, Alan had been shouting racist, horrible things for 12 straight hours for 4 days in a row, and he just looked like a truck hit him. Yeah. Like he was mentally exhausted, spent at the end of his rope. But to improv with him, he's a veteran actor and he's worked with Brian before, so it was a little bit intimidating. And we had a lot of that scene. That scene's written pretty short, and so a lot of that scene is improv where we keep going back and forth and back and forth. And I remember feeling a bit. Alan had a problem with the fact that Ben Chapman wouldn't just slug Eddie Stanky. He didn't understand why. Because everything that he did, and he's a brilliant actor and does a ton of research, and everything that he read about Chapman said that Chapman would have just clocked the guy. But I mean, this is a true story and this happened, and he didn't. So he had to find a reason to not do it. But he wanted, I felt like he kind of kept trying to get the last word in. And I thought, Stanky has to win this argument. That's the point of this scene. So it was kind of up to me to try to find something to top Alan's top, which is where the last line came in.
Hey, Stank, what's it like being a nigger's nigger?
I don't know, Chapman. What's it like to be a redneck piece of shit?
Thanks.
For what? You're on my team. What the hell am I supposed to do? Nice hit.
And that was the first scene we shot.
Was that right?
Yeah. So, and that's the first feature film that I've done. So it was like, all right, into the fire.
Yeah.
But I was happy with the way it turned out.